Hello friends, welcome to my video. Today I am going to talk about looping statements in C Sharp. It's a very important concept in any programming language and every developer or programmer must know about this. In this video, I'll discuss for loop, while loop, do while loop and for each loop. So before we get started, just a quick reminder to subscribe my channel, hit the red button and don't forget to click on the little bell icon. That way you will be notified every time I upload a new video. Okay, without any further delay, let's get started. C sharp looping or iteration statements. So what are these looping statements? These looping statements help us to repeatedly execute a statement or a block of statements. There are four looping statements in C sharp: for statement, while statement, do while statement, for each statements. We'll see all these looping statements one by one in detail. Before that, we understand why looping is required, an important concept in C sharp or any programming language. Number one reason is to perform repeat operation a specific number of times or infinite times. So whenever there is a requirement to repeat same type of instruction, we can do so with looping. Number two, it also helps us to repeat operation in non-deterministic cases where the number of iteration is not known in advance. So sometimes when we are not aware about that how many times we will have to execute same set of instruction, we can go with looping. At runtime, it will check how many times loop needs to be executed, right? Okay, so now let's discuss about some of its advantages. Number one, using loops, we do not need to write the same code again and again. Let's now clear this point, right? Okay. Number two, using loops, we can traverse over the elements of data structure as for example, list, array, etc. So what does it mean is we can iterate the elements of list collection or arrays with the help of looping concept. Isn't that great? Okay. Number three, using loops, we achieve the code reusability. Here code reusability means we write code one time and use the same code for many occasions to solve the business problem. So here looping also will help us to achieve code reusability. Now let's discuss all looping statements one by one. For loop in C sharp. What is for loop? The for loop helps us to do repetitive tasks until a condition is satisfied. Okay, let's try to understand it by the flowchart shown over here. So first initialization happens, then condition is checked. If condition turns out to true, then control enters into the loop and the statements written inside the loop gets executed. And then increment or decrement operation gets performed and then it completes one loop. Again, it reaches to the condition section and verifies whether this condition is true or false. If it is true, then it enters into the loop and this process goes on until condition checking turns out to false and then it exits the loop. If first time condition check itself, if it turns out to false, then it never enters into the loop. Okay, now let's see its syntax to understand how it is written in C sharp. So first of all, we write for keyword and then opening and closing parenthesis, and in between we write first initializer, then condition, and at last we write the iterator. And then opening and closing curly braces, and in between we just write the statement that we are planning to execute multiple times. If you notice, initializer, condition and iterators are separated by this semicolon. So it's very important, we need to keep in mind whenever we are writing this for loop. Okay, let's try to see this example shown over here. Here what I have done, I have written this statement for int I is equal to 1 semicolon I less than 3 semicolon I plus plus, and then opening and closing curly braces, and in between I have written this statement console.writeline learn and enjoy. So what this for statement does is, first it is initializing this I is equal to 1, okay, as a part of the initializer. So right now the value of I is 1. Then it reaches to the condition section. It verifies, okay, 1 is less than 3. Yeah, it's true, right? So it enters into the loop and print this statement into this console window. That's what I have written, console.writeline learn and enjoy. Okay. Now this statement, once it gets executed, then it comes to the iterator section. And then it is going to get incremented I value by 1. That's why I plus plus is written over here, right? So now I becomes 2. And then it just reaches to again this condition section where it verifies, okay, 2 is less than 3. Yeah, it's true. Then again it enters into the loop and then it is just going to print this statement into the console window. Again, now after this execution of this statement, it reaches to the iterator section and then it just increment I value by 1. So now I becomes 3. And then it reaches to the condition section, verifies, okay, 3 is less than 3, so the condition turns out to be false, then it exits the loop. And if you see this output shown below, it just printed learn enjoy triple dot 2 times only, right? So that's how the for loop works. While loop in C sharp. What is while loop? The while loop helps us to do repetitive tasks until a condition is satisfied. So let's try to understand it by the flowchart shown over here. So here at the entry gate of the while loop, condition is checked. If condition is true, control goes inside the loop and execute this return statement. And then again it comes to the condition check. And if turns out to true again, then again it enters into the loop and execute this statement. And this process goes on until condition is satisfied. If condition returns false, then it exits the loop. And if the first condition check itself, if it turns out to false, then it never enters into the loop. Okay, let's see the syntax shown over here. Here we need to write first while keyword and then opening and closing parentheses, and in between we need to provide this condition. And then we need to write opening and closing curly braces, and in between we need to provide this statement that we are planning to execute multiple times under this while loop, right? Okay, let's see the example shown over here. So here I have written I is equal to 1, and then I have written while I is less than 3, and then in between these two curly braces I have written this statement console.writeLine learn enjoy, and then I have written this I plus plus operator, right? Okay, what this while loop does is it will print learn enjoy into this console window, but how many times? It is decided by the condition, which is I is less than 3. If I is less than 3, then it is just going to execute this statement, and then I is getting incremented by 1, and then again it comes here and check whether I is less than 3 or not. If it is, then again it will enter into this loop and execute this statement, and this process goes on until this condition gets satisfied. Okay, and if you notice, initialization of I is not a part of while loop. It is outside of while loop, and that's what I wrote above of this while loop, int I is equal to 1, right? So that I can use it in the condition of this while loop. And if you see this output, as this loop got executed 2 times only, and that's what this 2 times learn enjoy triple dot got printed into this console window. Do while loop in C sharp. So what is do while loop? The do while help us to do repetitive task until a condition is satisfied. But it executes the statement written inside the loop once, and then condition is checked. And based on the condition, it will be decided whether control needs to be entered into the loop or not. And if you see the flowchart shown over here, first time it enters into the loop and execute this statement. Then condition is checked. If it is true, then next time also control enters into the loop and perform the operation of executing this statement. And in case of false, it exits the loops. Now come to the syntax shown over here. So first we need to write the do keyword, then opening and closing parentheses, and in between we need to provide this statement that we are planning to execute multiple times. Okay, and then we need to provide this while keyword, opening and closing parentheses, and in between we need to provide the condition. So if you see this statement do and while, so basically we need to perform the statement one time, and then we are going to check the condition whether it's a true or false. So that's what do while syntax guarantees that one time statement is going to be get executed. Okay, let's see the example shown over here. So first we write do opening and closing curly braces, and in between I have written this statement console.writeLine learn enjoy, and I have written while opening and closing parentheses, and in between I have written this false. What does it mean false condition over here is condition is always false. So after executing a statement first time, control would not get enter into the do while loop, and it exit the loop then and there. And that's what if you see this output shown over here, one statement only got printed, because the second time when this it is trying to enter into the loop, and that time we are checking this condition, and this condition is false. So it is not going to get entered into this loop, and that's what only one statement got printed, and that's what you are able to see the output shown over here, right? The for each loop in C sharp. What is for each loop in C sharp? The for each loop help us to execute statements for each element in an instance of the type that implements the system.collection.IEnumerable or system.collection.generic.IEnumerable interface, right? Okay, let's try to understand it via the flowchart shown over here. So here control comes and it verifies, does element exist in collection? Yes. Then it assigns the element to the variable from the IEnumerable collection and enters into the loop. Then execute the statement written inside the loop body. And again, it reaches to the condition section. And again verify, is there any next element available? If it exists, then assign the next element to the variable from the collection, and it enter inside the loops and execute the statements and so on. So if condition check determines that there is no next element exist in the collection, then it just exit the loop. So that's how for each loop works. Okay, let's see the syntax of for each loop. So first we need to write the for each keyword, then opening and closing parenthesis, and then in between we need to write the element. When we are talking about this element, so basically there are two things we need to write for the element. The first one is the data type and the second one is the data type variable. Instead of the data type, we could write the var keyword also. Okay, and then we need to write this in operator, and then we need to write the type that implements system.collection.IEnumerable or system.collection generic IEnumerable. So that type of instance we need to put it over there, and then we need to write this opening and closing curly braces, and in between we need to write this statement that we are planning to execute in a loop, right? Okay, let's see the example shown over here. So what I have done, I have written char array vowel is equal to a, e, I, o, u. So basically I have declared the character array and assigned the value to it. And then I have written this for each statement. So basically for each opening and closing parentheses, and then I have written char ch in vowel. So char ch is nothing but the element over here. So basically the data type and its variable name, and then in operator, right? And then I have written this vowel. So vowel is nothing but the instance of the type that implement the system.collection.IEnumerable, right? So now inside this for each loop, I have written this statement. So basically I am just printing ch, that is the character, into this console window. And if you see the output shown over here, first it's just going to print the a value, because it's just going to fetch one element from this collection, and then it's just going to print this. That's what we got the a. Similarly, for the next time, it is just going to enter into this loop, then e value is going to get assigned into this ch variable, and this ch is going to be printed into this console window. That's what we got the e value. Similarly, we are going to get the value of I, o, u, and then all the elements of this vowel char array got printed, right? The best part of for each is it is the looping whenever we want to iterate the IEnumerable collection. That is the best part of the for each loop. So here we are on Visual Studio. Here we are going to see looping demo in C#. So for that, I have created one console application named looping in C#. It has one program.cs file. In program.cs file, I have written this statement looping demo in C#, because I'm giving the demo of looping concept in C# over here, right? So I have accommodated all these four looping concept: for loop, while loop, do while loop, and for each loop over here. Okay, in for loop, what I have done, I have written this statement for int I is equal to 1, I is less than 3, I plus plus, and then this statement inside this two curly braces, right? So that it is just going to get executed whenever control enter into this loop. Okay, so here initially what happens, I is assigned value to 1, then it is just going to check whether 1 is less than 3. If it is, then it is just going to print this statement. Okay, and then once this statement gets executed, it's just going to the iterator section. So here it is, I is going to incremented by 1. So that's what I becomes 2, and then it just go to the condition section whether it checks 2 is less than 3 or not. If it is, then it's just going to print this statement. Again, it is going to the iterator section, incrementing by one value to the I, and that's what I becomes 3 over here. So here we are going to check whether I value, that means 3 value, is less than 3 or not. Here it is false, because 3 is not less than 3, right? So it's false, then it exit the loop. So ideally this statement should get printed 2 times only when we are going ahead with this for loop. Okay, coming to the while loop. So what I have done, I have initialized the variable a of the int data type, and that's what I have written, int a is equal to 1. And here in while loop, I am checking whether this a is less than 3 or not. If it is, then it's just going to enter into this loop and then print this statement, console.writeline learn and joy. Then it is just going to increment a value by 1. That's what I have written, a plus plus over here. Then it go again and check whether it condition returns true or not. If it returns true, then it will enter into this loop, and then again executing this statement, and then it is just going to increment a by 1 more time. Okay, then now a becomes 2, whether it condition returns true or not. If it returns true, then it will enter into this loop, and then again executing this statement, and then it is just going to increment a by one more time. Okay, a becomes 3. Now 3 is less than 3. No, then it just exit the loop, and this statement is going to print only 2 times over here. Okay, we will see once we are going to execute. Okay, coming to the do while loop demo, what I have done, I have written this do statement. Inside this do, I have written this statement console.writeline learn enjoy. Then in exit part, we have written this while loop, right? And here I have just part the condition as a false. So there is no chance to enter into this do loop because I have passed this false. So basically only one time it is just going to get executed. Okay, coming to the for each loop. In for each loop, what I have done, I have initialized this char array vowel and I have given this value a, e, I, o, u. In for each loop, I'm just going to iterate the element which is there in the char array, and that's what I have written char ch in vowel. So basically it is just going to check whether any character element is present in vowel or not. So if it is present, then it's just enter into this loop and execute this statement. So it will go till this item is present into this vowel, and we have not iterated further, right? So we have visited each and every element of this vowel array, then it will come out from the loop. Okay, let me execute this and see the output into this console window. So now output got appear into this console window. If you see, this first statement got printed looping demo in C#. For loop demo, only the learn enjoy triple dot printed 2 times only under this for loop. Similarly for the while loop also, it got printed only 2 times. In do while loop, only one time got printed, because in while, if you see here, in while, the second time it did not enter into this loop because the condition is itself as a false. So it is not going to get enter into this loop. That's what only one statement got printed into the do. And in for each loop, what I'm doing, I'm just iterating this character array, right? So it is just going to print a, e, I, o, u. It got printed, right? Because the 5 elements were there into this character array, and the all item visited all the elements, then it exited the loop, and that's what all the elements got printed into this for each loop. For versus while versus do while versus for each. So here we will have a glance of these 4 looping concept of C# in one go. Okay, coming to the syntax of the for loop, we need to write for opening and closing parentheses, and in between we need to write initializer, condition, and iterator. And all these 3 are optional field, right? And all these things are separated by the semicolon. And after that we need to write this opening and curly braces, and then in between we need to provide this statement that we are planning to execute multiple times. So that is the syntax for the for loop. Coming to the while loop, so first we need to write the while keyword and then opening and closing parentheses, and in between we need to provide the condition and then opening and closing curly braces, and in between we need to provide this statement that we are planning to execute multiple times as a part of loop, right? Coming to do while, we need to write the do keyword, then opening and closing curly braces, and in between we need to provide the statements that we are planning to execute multiple times, and then we need to write this while keyword and then opening and closing parentheses, and in between we need to provide this condition. Coming to the for each syntax, we need to write for each keyword, then opening and closing parentheses, and in between we need to write element in IEnumerable collection, and then we need to write this opening and closing curly braces, and in between we need to provide this statement. That is the syntax part. Okay, number 2, it executes its body 0 or more times. It again depends upon condition, whether it's false or true. If it is false, then it is just going to execute 0 time. 0 time means it is not going to execute the statement. Okay, similarly for the while condition also, while loop also, because the condition is checked first, so it depends upon the condition whether it's a true or false. Based on 0 or multiple time it is going to get executed. Coming to the do while loops, it is something different. It executes its body 1 or more times. One, why? Because this do statement is going to get executed first time without checking the condition. That's what it guarantees, that it is going to get executed at least one time. So that's what this statement executes its body 1 or more times makes sense. Coming to the for each loop, it executes its body 0 or more times. Again, why? Because it depends upon whether that particular element is existing into this IEnumerable collection or not. If it is not, then it is not going to execute this statement. That's what executes its body 0 or more times it is going to execute. So we need to keep in mind. Okay, coming to the third point, it is from entry control loop categories. Why it is called entry control? Because the condition is checked at the first time itself before executing this statement. That's what it is called, entry control loop categories. Okay, coming to the while, it is also from entry control loop categories because the condition is getting checked first before executing this statement. But in do while, it is from exit control loop categories. Why? Because the condition is checked at the exit point. Okay, and that's why at least one time a statement gets executed. Coming to the for each, it is also from the entry control loop category because it is going to verify whether that particular element exists in this collection or not. If it is not, then it is not going to execute this statement, and that's what it is controlled at the entry point itself. Okay, number 4, iteration is possible for a collection in both direction. Both direction means whether it's a decremented or whether it's a incremented iterator. Based on that, it can iterate in both direction, in increment direction or decrement direction. Similar case with the while also. It is also possible for iteration in while loop in the both direction. Coming to do while, iteration is possible for collection in both direction. Here also it is possible based on the condition. Okay, coming to the for each, using a for each loop, the iteration is possible in forward direction only. It is not possible in the both direction because it verifies whether that element is present in enumerable collection or not. So based on the availability of the element in the collection, it decides whether that statement needs to be executed or not. And if it is, then it is just going to execute in the forward direction only. Okay, now that brings me to end of my session. To sum up, in this video, we saw what C# looping statements are and how and when to use them. So I hope you must be having a grip on the looping concept in C# now. That's all for this video, guys. If you like this video, hit the like button, share it with your friends and colleagues, subscribe to my channel if you haven't done already. Thanks for watching. See you next video.